A week before my brother's birthday, I heard my family planning to let me pay first, then kick me out before photos. So I changed one detail. On the party night, Mom called, "Why is the hall locked?" I laughed and said she should ask her favorite son. My name is Wesley Kohler, and I was 34 the night my mother stood in a freezing parking lot and asked a locked door why it would not open for her. The hall was dark behind me. 42 guests were checking their phones in the cold. My brother Travis was yanking on a handle that was never going to move. And my mother had her phone pressed to her ear, calling the one person she thought could fix it. She was calling me. A week earlier, I had stood in her kitchen doorway and heard the three of them plan exactly how they were going to use my money and then erase me before the camera came out. They did not know I was there. They did not know I had already changed the only detail that mattered. So when she called that night and said, "Wesley, why is the hall locked?" I laughed once, soft, and told her she should ask her favorite son. Let me back up. I have been a mobile notary for 11 years in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It is not a glamorous job. I drive to people's kitchens and hospital beds and car dealerships, and I watch them sign things, and I make sure the person signing is the person they claim to be. Most of my work is boring: loan packets, power of attorney forms, the occasional will, signed by someone's grandmother with shaking hands while the family hovers in the next room. But here is the thing about doing that for 11 years. You stop reading documents the way normal people read them. Normal people read the top line and the signature line and skip the rest. I read the rest. I read who is named, who is authorized, whose card is on file, and what happens when two people both think they are in charge. That habit is the only reason this story has an ending I can live with. I make decent money. Not rich money. Steady money. I own a small house on the east side, paid down, nothing fancy. I keep my truck 12 years and my boots 3. And for most of my adult life, the extra I had, I quietly handed to my family. That part I need you to understand before anything else, because it is the wound under everything. I was the second son. Travis came first, 2 years ahead of me, and from the time I could walk, I understood the arrangement without anyone ever saying it out loud. Travis was the bright one, the loud one, the one whose school projects got photographed and put on the fridge. I was the one who was good with the boring stuff. That was the phrase. My whole childhood in my mother Diane's mouth. "Wesley's so good with the boring stuff. Let me give you the receipts because I do not want you taking my word for any of this." When I was 9, our family did portraits at a studio in the mall. I remember the scratchy collar of the shirt my mother bought me and the way the photographer told us all to lean in. A month later, the framed print went up over the couch. It was a beautiful photo. My mother, my father Roy, and Travis, the three of them smiling under warm light. I was not in it. I asked about it once, years later, and my mother waved her hand. "Oh, you were making a face in that one, sweetheart. We picked the best one." When I was 12, I saved up $40 cutting grass and bought my mother a small ceramic bird for her birthday because she collected them. Travis forgot her birthday entirely that year. The story she still tells at every holiday is about the year Travis surprised her with a card he made himself. She tells it like it is the sweetest thing that ever happened to her. The card was a folded piece of notebook paper. I have never once heard her mention the bird, and it still sits on her windowsill. When I was 17, I had my high school graduation on a Friday night in June. My mother and father came for the first 20 minutes, then left to drive Travis to a regional baseball game 2 hours away, because Travis had a chance at a scholarship that never came. I walked across that stage and looked out at 2 empty seats with my name taped to them. My Aunt Lynn was there. She clapped so hard her hands turned red. She has never let them forget it, and they have never forgiven her for remembering. There is one more, and it is small, which is why it stuck. When I was 26, I bought my parents a new refrigerator because theirs had died in July, and they could not cover it. I had it delivered while I was on a signing across town, so I was not even there to be thanked. A week later, I came for Sunday dinner, and my mother was showing it off to a neighbor in the kitchen, running her hand along the door. The neighbor asked where she got it. My mother said, "Oh, Travis takes such good care of us." Travis was sitting right there at the table. He did not correct her. He reached over and grabbed a soda out of the fridge I bought and never said a word. So you see the pattern. I am not telling you this to make you sad. I am telling you so you understand that nothing they did this year was new. It was just, for the first time, written down where I could read it. Now let me tell you about the money, because the money is where convenient becomes invisible. Travis grew up and stayed exactly who he was. Big plans, big talk, soft follow-through. He opened a landscaping business that folded. He opened a detailing shop that folded. He married a kind woman named Renata, and they had 2 kids, and then last spring he got divorced. And the divorce took the house and most of his pride with it. And through every one of those collapses, who do you think quietly covered the gaps? I did. I told myself it was for the kids. I told myself family helps family. When my mother's car needed a transmission, I paid for it and let her tell the neighbors Travis had handled it. When the property taxes on my parents' house came due 2 winters running and they were short, I set up an auto pay from my own account so they would never have to feel the pinch or say thank you. They never knew the exact amount. They knew there was a son who made the problems go away, and they had trained themselves not to look too closely at which son. I was the wallet. I just had not said the word to myself yet. The first hint of this year's problem came in August in my mother's kitchen over a glass of sweet tea I did not want. Travis is turning 40 in November, she said, stirring sugar that had already dissolved. After the year he's had, that man needs something to feel proud of. I want to do it right. A real party. A hall, a caterer, the whole family, photos, everything. I said that sounded nice. She put her spoon down very gently on the saucer. I was hoping you'd handle the booking, sweetheart. You're so good with the boring stuff. Let me worry about the fun parts. I should have heard it then. The job was mine. The fun was theirs. The credit had already been assigned before I agreed to anything. But I said yes, because I always said yes. I found a hall called the Magnolia Room, a brick event space off Sheridan with a wood floor and tall windows. I priced the catering. I priced the bar. I put down the deposit on my own card, the way I put down every deposit on my own card, because that is simply how I do paperwork. I am the card holder. I am the named renter. I sign on the line that says responsible party. It did not even feel like a decision. It felt like Tuesday. The total by the time it was done was just over $11,000. I want to be honest about something. For about 6 weeks, I was happy to do it. I told myself this was the year I gave Travis the thing he never gave me, a night where he stood in the middle of the room and people clapped. I did not need the middle of the room. I had made peace with the edges of the frame a long time ago, so I thought. Then came the second week of October, and the kitchen doorway, and the conversation that was never meant for my ears. I had stopped by my mother's house on a Saturday to drop off the printed seating chart and the final head count for the caterer. The front door was unlocked, the way it always was, and I let myself in and heard voices in the kitchen, and I stopped in the hallway because I did not want to interrupt what sounded like planning. I am glad I stopped. My mother was talking. The photographer Marco, he's coming at 7:30 for the formal pictures, the family ones, so we need the timing clean. Travis's voice. Clean how? Wesley's going to want to be in everything. He always hovers. A small laugh, the kind she uses to make cruelty sound like fondness. So we get him there early to handle the check-in and the trays and whatever goes wrong. And then around 7, we send him on a run. Ice or napkins, something. He'll go. He always goes. And by the time he's back, Marco's done with the family set, and it's just the 4 of us and the kids in the pictures, the way it should be. My father quiet, the way he is always quiet. He paid for all this, Diane, and isn't that nice of him? My mother again brisk, closing the subject. Roy, he's not a picture person. Look at his face in any photo. He'd rather be useful than seen. We're doing him a favor. Then Travis, and this is the line I carried out of that hallway like a stone in my coat. Just don't let him stand next to me. It throws off the shot. I did not make a sound. I want you to understand that. I have replayed that moment 100 times, and every time I am proud of the one thing I did, which was nothing. I did not storm in. I did not throw the head count on the table. I set the folder down on the little table by the door, quiet as a notary leaving a signing, and I walked back out to my truck, and I sat there with the keys in my hand and did not start the engine. I could see my breath inside the cab. It was not even that cold yet. I just did not turn the heat on. That is the closest I will come to telling you how it felt. I drove home and I opened my own copy of the party file, because I keep a copy of everything I sign or print. That is the job. And I made myself look at the 2 pages I had been carrying around for weeks without really reading them, the way you stop seeing your own front door. The first was the invitation proof. I had paid for the printing. Across the bottom, in soft gray script, it said, "You are warmly invited by Diane and Travis Kohler." My name was nowhere on it. The man who wrote the check was not the host. The host was the woman who asked him to handle the boring stuff. The second was the seating chart. I had built it myself, table by table, 42 names, so the caterer would know where to set the plates. I read every name twice. Aunts, uncles, cousins, Travis's co-workers, the kids, Renata's mother. My name was not on it. I had made a chart for a room I had paid for, and I had not given myself a chair. I had done it without noticing, the way you learn a thing so early that your own hand does it for you. I had been erasing myself from my family's pictures so long that I did it in print, for free, weeks before they ever planned to send me out for ice. I sat at my own kitchen table with the 2 pages in front of me, and I did not feel like fighting. I felt like a man who had finally read the fine print on his own life. For most people, that is where the story would turn into a fight. A confrontation in the kitchen, a speech, somebody crying. I am not most people. I am a man who has spent 11 years watching what happens when one person knows the contract and the other person only thinks they do. So I did not fight. I went home and I read. I pulled up the Magnolia Room agreement on my laptop and I read it the way I read other people's documents line by line, the boring way, the way that saves people from things they never see coming. And there it was, in the section nobody ever reads. The hall released access only to the named responsible party. That was me. The contract listed one cardholder and one authorized representative for day of entry, key release, and final walkthrough. The key, the single key. The brick building with the tall windows opened for exactly one name, and that name was mine. My mother had asked me to handle the boring stuff. She had no idea she was handing me the only door that mattered. Now here is the part where most people expect me to say I locked them out on the spot and called it even. I did not. Because a locked door by itself is just a tantrum with a lock. I wanted something cleaner than that. I wanted them to walk all the way down the path they had built, with their own hands, in front of the people whose opinion they cared about most, before the door ever entered the conversation. So I changed one detail. The original booking had a second name on it for backup pickup, my mother's. I had added her in September as a courtesy, in case I got stuck on a signing and could not get there to let the caterer in. One phone call to the hall's coordinator, a man named Hector who had handled every detail with me from the start, and that courtesy quietly disappeared. Just want to confirm, I told him, that day of release is me only. Photo ID, my card, my name. Nobody else picks up that key, nobody else gets a code, nobody gets in until I'm physically there to open it. Hector did not even pause. That's standard for the responsible party, Mr. Kohler. We don't release to anyone but the name on the agreement. I'll note it. Note it twice, I said. I will be honest about the night after I made that call, because I do not want you thinking I am made of stone. I almost undid it. I sat up late with my phone in my hand and Hector's number on the screen, and I thought about my mother standing in a cold parking lot in her good coat, and something in me, the 9-year-old in the scratchy collar, wanted to call back and put her name on the contract again and just let them have their photos and their tight little family of 4. That boy had spent 25 years believing that if he were only useful enough, quiet enough, easy enough, they would one day make room for him in the frame. I let myself feel that for about an hour. Then I took the original photo out of my coat and looked at it. The missing tooth, the grin. The kid who was already in the middle and did not yet know they would print the version without him. I put the phone down. I did not call back. Protecting that kid was not cruelty. It was the first time anyone ever had. That was the whole move. One name removed, one sentence confirmed. It took 90 seconds, and it cost nothing. And it was the most honest thing I did all year, because it simply made the paperwork match the truth they had said out loud in the kitchen. They wanted the family to be 4 people. Fine. I made the door belong to the 5th. Then I went quiet, and I let October finish. This is the part I am least proud of, so I will say it plainly. For 3 weeks, I lied with my face. I went to 2 planning dinners and smiled at my brother and asked about the kids. I confirmed the cake flavor with my mother. I let her pat my arm and call me reliable. I sat at her table and ate her pot roast and said nothing while she described, in detail, how lovely the formal photos were going to be. The principle I learned in those 3 weeks is one I still believe. You do not owe a performance of pain to people who planned the pain. Your calm is not forgiveness. Sometimes your calm is just the quiet before the paperwork. There was one dinner, 2 weeks out, that tested every bit of that calm. My mother had the whole family over to go through the final timeline. She had it written on a yellow legal pad, and she read it out at the table like a director walking through a scene. Guests at 6:30, toast at 7. And then, in her own handwriting, in front of everyone, she said the next line without even looking up. Formal photos with Marco at 7:30. Family only, so we keep that tight. Travis caught my eye across the table when she said it. He almost smiled. He thought I did not know what tight meant. I passed the rolls to my left and asked my mother what time she wanted the cake brought out. I asked it in the same voice I use to ask a man if he has read the document before he signs it. Steady, helpful. Already 2 steps down a road he cannot see. After the photos, she said, pleased that I was being useful. You'll know when. You always know when. I'll handle it, I said. I ate her pot roast. I complimented the gravy. I drove home and slept fine. Because a man who knows where the only key in the building lives does not lie awake worrying about a yellow legal pad. But something did slip. Because my mother is not stupid, and she noticed I was too easy. The first crack came when she called the hall directly, 2 weeks out, to add her own little touch, a champagne toast, something she wanted to arrange herself. Hector, doing exactly what I had asked, told her warmly that he would be happy to note her request, but that all confirmations and any day of access ran through the cardholder, Mr. Kohler. She called me an hour later, and her voice had a new edge under the sweetness. I tried to add something at the hall, and the man said it all has to go through you. She let that sit. Why would it all have to go through you? Wesley? I was refilling my dog's water bowl when she said it. I set the bowl down on the kitchen floor before I answered. Because I have learned that you say hard things better when your hands are already finished. Because I'm the one who signed for it, Mom. That's just how the contract works. Well, I'm his mother. I should be able to handle my own son's party. You can handle anything you want, I said. I'll be there to open up. Whatever you need, just tell me. A long pause, I could hear the television behind her. Then, lighter, recovered. You're being very particular this year. I'm always particular, I said. It's the boring stuff. I'm good at it. She laughed. Because she thought it was a joke about myself, the kind I had been making my whole life to make her comfortable. It was not a joke. It was the only true sentence I had said to her in 3 weeks. I was good at the boring stuff, and the boring stuff was about to be the whole night. She let it go, but I knew she was watching now, the way a person watches a dog that has stopped begging at the table and wonders vaguely what it has learned. A few days before the party, I drove out to see my Aunt Lynn. Lynn is my mother's older sister, and she is the one person in that family who never learned to look away. She lives alone in a small house with too many plants and a kettle that is always about to boil. She poured me coffee without asking and sat down across from me at her kitchen table and looked at me for a while before she said anything. You found out, she said finally. Not a question. I had not told her a thing. Found out what? That they're cutting you out of the pictures. She wrapped both hands around her mug. Your mother told me the plan herself, weeks ago, like it was nothing. The errand, the timing, the 4 of them and the kids. She shook her head once. I've watched her do this to you since you were small, Wesley. I just never had the heart to tell you out loud. I did not say anything. I have learned that when someone is finally telling the truth, the kindest thing you can do is hold still and let them. She got up, went to a hall closet, and came back with a shoebox. She set it on the table between us and took the lid off. Photographs, hundreds of them. The old kind printed soft at the corners. These are the originals, she said. Before your mother went through and picked which ones to frame. I kept the whole rolls. Every family photo we ever took, I have the version she didn't choose. She pushed one across the table to me. Look, it was the mall studio portrait from when I was 9. The scratchy collar, the warm light. My mother, my father, Travis, and me. Standing right in the middle, front and center, one of my front teeth missing, grinning like the whole night belonged to me. I was in it. I had always been in it. She had just printed the one without me. I have signed a lot of documents in my life. I have watched people's hands shake over the most important pages of their lives. I had never, until that moment, understood what it does to a person to be handed proof that they were there all along. I put the photo in my coat pocket. Lynn did not stop me. Whatever you're planning, she said, walking me to the door, I'm coming Saturday, and I'm not leaving early. The night of the party, it was 38 degrees and dropping, and the wind came straight across the parking lot with nothing to stop it. I want to walk you through this exactly the way it happened, because the order of it matters, and because I did not raise my voice one single time, and I want you to see how a quiet man turns a room without ever stepping inside it. I did not arrive early. That was the first change. Every other year, every other event, I was the first one there, unloading, fixing, smoothing. This year, I waited. By 6:45, the lot was filling. I watched from my truck across the street, the engine off, the photo in my coat pocket pressed flat against my chest. The caterer's van pulled up to the side door. Travis arrived in a borrowed suit with his 2 kids and his new girlfriend, laughing, already playing the host. My parents came in their good clothes, aunts, uncles, cousins. Travis's co-workers from the dealership where he sells cars now. Renata's mother, who still loves the kids. 42 people, give or take, all dressed for a warm room with food and music and a slideshow. The doors were locked. I watched it happen from across the street like a man watching weather come in. First, confusion. Travis at the front doors, hand on the handle, pulling, then walking the building to the side door. Locked. The caterer standing by the van with trays of food, waiting to be led into a kitchen nobody could open. Guests bunching up under the small awning, out of the wind, breath fogging, checking the time on their phones. Then my mother working the crowd, all smiles, telling everyone it was a small mix-up, that Wesley handles these things, that he must be running a little late. I watched her say my name to a circle of relatives and laugh it off and pat the air with her hands. Reliable Wesley. Good with the boring stuff Wesley. The man who would arrive any minute and fixed the only thing that could not be fixed by anyone but him. My phone rang at 6:58. I let it ring twice, then I answered Wesley. My mother's voice tight under the chair. Where on earth are you? Why is the hall locked? I looked across the street at her, standing under the awning in the cold, the phone to her ear, not knowing I could see her. I laughed, one soft breath of a laugh. Then I said the only thing I had planned to say all week. I don't know, Mom. Why don't you ask your favorite son? I hung up. I crossed the street. I want to slow this part all the way down, because the next 10 minutes are the reason I can sleep at night. I came around the corner of the building into the light of the awning, and the crowd turned the way crowds turn when the missing piece finally shows up. Relief on most of the faces. My mother pushed through to the front, her smile back on, her hand already out for the key. There you are. She kept her voice bright for the audience. You scared us half to death. Open it up, sweetheart. It's freezing out here. I stopped about one step short of her, just far enough that the hand she was holding out had nothing to land on. I'm not going to do that, I said. It was not loud. The people closest heard it. The ones farther back leaned in. My mother's smile did not move, but something behind it did. Wesley, the food's getting cold. People are cold. Open the door. The hall opens for one name, I said. Mine. I'm the one who signed for it. I'm the one whose card paid for all of it. $11,000 just over. The deposit, the catering, the bar, the cake, all of it me. A small shift went through the crowd, the kind you feel more than here. 42 people recalculating something at once. Travis pushed forward, red in the face, half from the cold and half from something older. What is this, some kind of stunt? Open the damn door, Wes. You're embarrassing, Mom. I turned to look at him, my brother. 40 years old that night, in a borrowed suit, in front of his coworkers and his kids. I heard you, I said. Heard me what? In the kitchen, 3 weeks ago. The plan. I kept my voice flat, the way I read a contract out loud to a nervous signer, just the words, no heat. Get me there early to handle the trays. Send me out for ice at 7. Let Marco take the family photos while I'm gone. 4 of you and the kids. The way it should be. I paused. You said don't let me stand next to you. You said I throw off the shot. The parking lot went very quiet. Somewhere behind me, a tray of food was set down on the asphalt because the man holding it forgot he was holding it. My Aunt Lynn moved up to stand beside me. She did not say a word. She just stood there in the cold, refusing to leave early, exactly as she had promised. My mother recovered first, because she always does. She stepped close, dropped her voice so only the front row could hear, and went for the soft knife. Wesley, you're not a picture person. You never were. Look your face in any photo you've ever been in. You'd rather be useful than seen, and there is nothing wrong with that. She reached up and touched my coat sleeve. You were never going to be in the picture, sweetheart. Somebody has to hold the family up. That was always you. There it was. The whole truth of 34 years said out loud at last, in front of everyone, dressed up as a compliment. I reached into my coat and I took out the photo Lynn had given me. I did not wave it. I did not shout. I just held it up where the people in front could see it, in the light of the awning, and I said, this is the studio portrait from when I was 9, the original, before she printed the one without me. I turned it so my mother could see her own face in it, and mine right in the middle, the missing tooth, the grin. I was always in the picture, I said. She just kept printing the ones where I wasn't. I have notarized deathbed wills. I have watched families come apart over a single signature. I had never seen a face do what my mother's face did then. The smile finally let go. Not in shock, in recognition. The way a person looks when the one thing they have always counted on, your silence, turns out to be gone, and they realize they never heard it leave. She did not have a soft knife for that. She did not have anything. Travis was the one who broke. He grabbed the door handle again, both hands, and rattled it hard enough to shake the glass, like the building itself had personally wronged him. When it did not give, he spun around and turned on her, on our mother, in front of his coworkers and his kids. This is your fault, he said loud. Ugly. You said you'd handle him. You said he'd never know. You couldn't even keep one brother out of a parking lot. A man Travis works with took a slow step backward into the crowd. One of Travis's kids started to cry. Renata's mother put her arms around both children and turned them away from their father. An uncle reread the printed invitation in his hand, the one that listed Diane Kohler as host, and then looked up at me, and then folded it in half and put it in his pocket. One of the aunts near the front had been holding a wrapped gift the whole time, a box with a bow she had clearly spent real care on. She set it down on the cold concrete by the door, slowly like it had stopped meaning what she bought it to mean. She did not pick it back up. Forks were not stopping at a dinner table that night, because there was no dinner. But I will tell you what I saw instead. I saw 42 people quietly deciding to remember it differently than they had been told. I saw the family image my mother had spent my whole life curating come apart in the cold, picture by picture, with no photographer there to save a single frame. Marco the photographer, in fact, was already packing his lights back into his car. He had walked over, sized up the situation in about 4 seconds, and decided there were no formal portraits happening tonight. The only camera that came for that family never took a single shot. I put the photo back in my coat. "I'll release the haul to the venue tomorrow morning," I told Hector, who had come out the side door with his clipboard and a face that said he had seen a lot of events but not many like this. "Refund whatever's refundable to my card. The caterer gets paid in full for their time. That's not their fault." Then I looked at my mother one more time. She was standing very still in her good coat in the wind, with nothing in her outstretched hand. "You wanted a night just for the 4 of you," I said. "You got it. Enjoy the door." I walked back to my truck. I did not slam it. I started the engine, turned the heat on this time all the way up, and I drove home with the photo on the passenger seat where a person would sit. Now I want to tell you what happened after, because the door was never the point. The door was just the moment the truth stopped fitting in their pockets. The story of the locked hall traveled fast. 42 people had been standing in that parking lot, and not one of them had heard my mother's version first. They had heard mine. They had seen the photo. They had watched Travis blame his own mother in front of his coworkers and his crying children. Within a week, the family image my mother had protected for 34 years was simply gone, not destroyed by me. Destroyed by 10 minutes of cold air and one printed photograph. Travis's milestone 40th, the night that was supposed to rebuild his standing, became the night of the locked hall. That is the only way anyone tells it now. His coworkers at the dealership tell it. The cousins tell it. It will be told at family funerals for the next 40 years, and in every version, my brother is rattling a door that will not open for him. The money came up next, the way money always does once a family stops pretending. When people started asking questions, the answer kept being me. The transmission, the property taxes, the auto pay I had quietly run for 2 winters. I had canceled that auto pay the same week I changed the contract calmly, with no announcement. So that winter, for the first time in 2 years, my parents' property tax bill landed on their own kitchen table with no sun hidden behind it to make it disappear. My mother had to look at the number. She had to feel the pinch she had trained herself not to see. I did not gloat about it. I simply stopped carrying a weight I had never been thanked for. My father called me once, about a month after. Roy is a quiet man. And the call was short. He did not defend her. He said I should have said something in that kitchen. I knew it was wrong, and I sat there. Then he was quiet for a while, and then he said, "That photo. I forgot you were ever in the middle of anything." We do not talk often. But that one sentence was more than 34 years had given me, and I took it. My mother has not apologized. I did not expect her to. People who spend a lifetime cropping you out of pictures do not suddenly learn to see the whole frame. She has told a few relatives that I humiliated her, that I ruined Travis's birthday out of spite, that I was always jealous. The relatives who were in the parking lot just listen and say nothing, because they were there, and they saw the photo, and they know which version is the original. Travis lost more than a party. His girlfriend left a few weeks later. His coworkers look at him differently. The man who built his whole identity on being the one in the center of the picture is now, in the only story anyone tells about that year, a grown man yelling at his mother in a parking lot because his brother would not hand him a key. I did not do that to him. He did it with both hands on a door I simply did not open. Renata called me, of all people, about 6 weeks after, my brother's ex-wife. She had heard the story from the kids, who had heard it from everyone. She did not gloat, and neither did I. She just wanted me to know that her son, my nephew, had asked her a question she did not know how to answer. He had asked why Uncle Wes was never in any of the pictures at Grandma's house. She told him she did not know. Then she told me she had decided to start keeping her own photos of the kids with me in them, so that when they were grown, there would be a record of who actually showed up. I told her I would like that. We do not owe each other anything. But we are both people who got cropped out of that family, and we recognize each other now. A cousin I had barely spoken to in years sent me a message a few weeks after the party. She had been in the parking lot. She wrote that she had spent her whole childhood being quietly told I was the difficult one, the jealous one, the one who kept his distance, and that standing in the cold watching the truth come out had rearranged something in her. She did not apologize for things that were not hers to carry. She just said she saw it now. Sometimes that is the whole repair. Somebody finally sees it. Aunt Lynn and I see each other every couple of weeks now. She gave me the whole shoebox. Every roll, every original, every version of every family photo where I was standing right, where I had always actually been, in the middle, in the light, before someone decided I threw off the shot. It has been 7 months. My life is quieter than it has ever been, and the quiet is the good kind now, not the convenient kind. I still drive to people's kitchens and hospital beds and watch them sign the most important pages of their lives. I am still good with the boring stuff. I have just stopped letting anyone use that as a word for invisible. I framed one photo and hung it in my front hall, where you see it the second you walk into my house. It is the studio portrait from when I was 9. The original. My mother, my father, Travis, and me, right in the middle, one front tooth missing, grinning like the whole night belonged to me. There were no photos taken at that hall in November. The lights packed up and drove away. The family that wanted a picture of just the 4 of them ended up with no picture at all, standing in the cold in front of a door that only ever opened for the sun they tried to send out for ice. The only photograph that survived that night is the one my aunt kept for 25 years, the one where I was always there, hanging now on my own wall, in my own house, in the warm light where nobody gets to crop me out ever again. Drop a comment, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.